and we're going to be starting our next Dignilogue, our first Dignilogue session today. So I'm going to spotlight our friends that are contributing to this session. And I'm going to ask everyone to please turn off your cameras except for our Dignilogue contributors. And I'm going to put them together right now. And here comes me. Sorry about the phone. There I am. And Mara, I'm going to add you. And Evelyn, you're out there too. There you are. We're going to add you to the spotlight for a little bit. Wonderful. Look at, we put everybody together. So if you're in speaker view, you see our entire Dignilogue group, which is very exciting. And this is a great group to begin with. Before we begin our group, I just want to say a few words about Digniloguing. Many years ago, Evelyn and I realized when we were doing our early research that we need a broad number of people to contribute to the conversation about the complexities and challenges of humiliation and human dignity. So rather than lecture presentations, we moved in the direction of dignity plus dialogue. And I think it's really important to recognize that we'll never have enough time, as Evelyn says, but we want to plant some seeds so people can build on ideas in their own lives through their own works. So the Dignilogue format is an opportunity to plant a few seeds. And if everything goes well, we hope these conversations will continue beyond our actual workshop. So this is just the very start of a larger conversation. I want to let our Dignilogue contributors know, and those of you that have Dignilogues during the day, that I'm going to be doing a little timing so you know where you are in the program. And that means I'm going to be sharing a background filter that shows you the time. And in our particular group, we have 7 minutes. And my background will look like this, so they know I've started the timing. This is not to intimidate or humiliate. It's to help them know where they are. So thank you for understanding that. If a speaker goes a little too long, then in the old days when we were in New York and people would go too long, because it's really easy to do, my husband, our director of Dignilogue, or Dignifunding, would run out into the audience and give that person a kiss. Now, that's not going to happen here. But if you go too long, this is what you will see. It actually was an incredibly effective way to keep people on track, is that kiss. And this is my virtual kiss from behind the scenes. So that's how we will begin our Dignilogue session with our timer. I'm so excited about this session because we have some wonderful educational leaders. And I think you all know that the pandemic has totally upended our educational systems at all levels. And we're particularly sympathetic to all of you and all people that are working as teachers, educators, administrators, who are doing everything they can to keep going online, in person. We think about parents that are having to juggle online, in person, and teaching in the home. And especially we're thinking about those students who get left out and left behind. And how can we work with this pandemic to create learning systems that provide for the dignity of all people throughout their lives? That's what we're thinking about in this particular Dignilogue session. I'm really happy to be here with two co-hosts, starting with Evelin, Mara Alagic. Mara is here and Evelyn is here, but I'm going to introduce Mara a little more formally. Mara is a professor in the School of Education and serves as the graduate coordinator for the Learning and Instructional Design program at Wichita State University. And she's going to say a few words about learning and education. I'm turning it over to you, Mara.
Thank you, Linda. I am a very visual person, so I hope you can see my slide. And I have 2 slides. This concept is dear to my heart, learning and education, and situation this year is really inspiring to think more about that. This slide here that you see is actually, I used Evelin's conceptualization of our interconnectedness and being together with an infinity sign. So what does reimagining learning and education mean is going to be an ongoing theme here. But I decided to share just a simple example. I have a student teacher that went to a child's home with a whiteboard and was teaching mathematics multiplication through the window. So that's just my example of a gap that we have. And I have one more slide that connects for me dignity, me personally, who I am, and then thinking about Ubuntu, the way Desmond Tutu is interpreting it. I am because of you. So very excited to be here with all of you and looking forward to hear this first Dignilogue.
Thank you so much, Mara. Thank you. And thank you again for working behind the scenes. It really helps to have somebody who has your experience and educational sensitivity that makes people, allows people to get connected into our group with technology. Evelyn would like to say a few words about our special initiative with the Human Dignity Group. Evelyn.
Yes, dear friends, it is such a pleasure to be here with you. May I explain to you, in 2011, at the University of Oslo in Norway, we launched an educational platform for dignity, the World Dignity University Initiative. Our aim is to invite all educators and learners who wish to bring more dignity into the world to nurture this educational initiative. We are deeply grateful to Uli Spalthoff for having created the worlddignityuniversity.org site. And now we are looking forward for a successor who can cultivate this initiative also during the coming years, an educational leader who can give some years to cultivating this initiative. So whoever feels called, please contact us. And now I would like to explain that as part of this effort, we have the honor of partnering with the Western Institute for Social Research, WISER, that is based in Berkeley, California, as a new model of learning. We are overjoyed to have John Bilorusky with us here. It's president and faculty member, together with faculty member Rosa Reinikainen. And we have no words to thank our very own David Yamada for being the matchmaker of this wonderful and deeply enriching connection. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Evelyn. And yes, it's very exciting about this workshop because we have a great panel. And also all of our folks on this panel are dignity leaders as well as dignity educators in the world. So let me introduce our group together. They're not a panel, we're just a connection group. David Yamada is a tenured professor of law and director of the New Workplace Institute at Suffolk University Law School in Boston, and an internationally recognized authority on workplace bullying and host of the popular blog, Minding the Workplace. And by the way, it is my favorite blog, David. It's really a powerful blog. He is on the board of directors for Human Dignity and Humiliation Studies and the board of trustees for Western Institute of Social Research. And in his spare time, he's a wonderful singer. We might get a treat from him singing wise later on during our workshop. But David, just wave. Then John Bilorusky is co-founder of the Western Institute of Social Research in Berkeley, California. For 45 years, he's guided hundreds of students and consulted with dozens of community agencies. John has 2 forthcoming books. I hope we'll hear about those. He's an academic leader who deeply understands the power of education to strengthen dignity of the students he works with and advance social justice in the world. So John, please wave. Hello to you. Rosa Reinikainen is a learning support instructor at Weiser. She is the coordinator of student services. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist, as well as a longtime advocate and activist for equality. She has extensive experiences addressing trauma, including cultural and collective trauma. And Rosa blazed her way through our Dignity Studies course at Weiser's. She was like on fire. We were so amazed. And then she took that learning and started larger conversations with people. And we were just in awe of that. So welcome, Rosa. Please wave your hand. And then finally, Maggie O'Neill. Maggie, it's so good to be with you again. Maggie has been with the network for a long time. She is a professor of sociology and the head of the Department of Sociology and Criminology at University College Cork in Ireland. She is a member of the Center for the Study of the Moral Foundations of Economy and Society, and she's on the board of directors for Human Dignity and Humiliation Studies. She is an interdisciplinary scholar who conducts participatory action research and has a long history of working with artists and community groups to conduct art-based research, working together to create changes that keep social justice at the core of their research. She is a role model for so many of us. So wave your hand, Maggie. Thank you. So we're going to begin with David telling us how you started formulating reimagining learning by working with these two groups. David.
Okay, great. Thank you, Linda, and hello, everyone. Delighted that despite current conditions, we can access our technology to gather together, and I'm very appreciative of that. I'm really more of a table setter in terms of my role in this Dignilogue, sharing a story of matchmaking, as Evelin suggested, between two very wonderful groups of people. One, most of you know, the Human Dignity and Humiliation Studies Network. The other you may not know as well, which is the Western Institute for Social Research in Berkeley. And so I'm going to say a few words about the Western Institute, or WISER as we call it, and then just lead us into that partnership that I hope will continue to bring these two groups together and really harvest some interesting learning to come. So anyway, WISER is a tiny independent storefront university in downtown Berkeley that since the late 1970s has been offering innovative self-designed degree programs in higher education, social change, and community service. And it also offers a master's degree program that can lead to becoming a therapist in California. We are very blessed that its primary co-founder and my dear friend, John Bilorusky, is on our program today. So I discovered WISER years ago because of my ongoing interest in higher education, adult education, and social change. I've been a law professor for almost 30 years now. And when I got tenure in 2000, I decided that I wanted to evolve my work in ways where I would not become kind of a standard brand academic for the rest of my career. And I knew of WISER before, so I got back in touch through John and enrolled in its doctoral program in higher education and social change. And I did a bunch of projects, kind of an eclectic variety of projects through that program. Ultimately wrote my dissertation on various multidisciplinary responses to bullying and abuse in the workplace. After finishing that program, I would join the WISER Board of Directors. So there's WISER on that side. Now, it was in the mid-2000s when I discovered the Human Dignity and Humiliation Studies Network and met Evelin and Linda. And I think my first in-person connection was when Linda attended a program I gave on workplace bullying in the nonprofit sector, which, as some of you may know, is not always the hearts and flowers workplace sector that some people might think it is. And so that connection led me to further involvement with the Human Dignity Network. I became increasingly immersed in this group's work. And several years ago, I joined the Human DHS Board of Directors as well. So I think you can figure out, you know, the matchmaking that's about to happen. I realized that WISER and the Human Dignity and Humiliation Studies Network were very compatible in both mission and personality. So I thought it was time, you know, maybe to try and bring the peanut butter and the chocolate together, right? To create some type of partnership. And I arranged a meetup to discuss the possibility of WISER working with the Human Dignity and Humiliation Studies Network to create a dignity studies specialization within WISER's degree programs that would access just the marvelous resources we have in the human DHS community, especially our very special Linda and Evelin. And so that's why we're here today, because John and Rosa are going to talk about WISER and that partnership. Maggie's joining us from across the pond to talk about dignity in higher education against a broader backdrop. And my invitation to those of you who are in some way involved with the world of higher education and adult learning is to think of other types of partnerships in which we can mainstream human dignity perspective in our various forms of learning. Because I think if we're going to talk about this sort of transdisciplinary perspective on human dignity, that one way in which to sort of spread the word and to get people thinking about this more is to introduce it into our degree programs, our continuing education programs, and to carry through that message in ways that bring together not only the people who are spread around addressing these important matters, but also some of the core ideas. And in fact, one of the, I think, the building blocks that we've created through this partnership is that Linda and Evelin joined the WISER folks to create a sort of a foundation course in human dignity studies that I think serves as kind of a real basis for thinking about how we can intellectually create that base of understanding and content. So really, that's my role. It has been, again, to be a matchmaker, to bring together great people, great ideas, a common commitment to advancing human dignity and reducing the experience of humiliation. These are some of the best people that I've, you know, had an opportunity to know. They've really changed the course of my life and my work life as well. And so to be a part of this and to be able to really help facilitate this partnership has been such a pleasure. And I will now turn it over to John, Rosa, and Maggie for their great insights.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, David. Oh, that was a great way to start. Thank you for being the institutional matchmaker, because this is a match made in heaven as far as I'm concerned. Not everyone understands the work of the Human Dignity and Humiliation Studies Group in the way that John Bilorusky and his innovative program does. And so we're so glad that you made this connection. So John, please continue the conversation, because we know you've talked about some of the complexities of working with this particular topic.
Thanks, Linda. I'm really pleased to be able to meet many of you who I haven't met, and I'll just begin by saying I would welcome in the future to correspond by email. I typed in the chat my email, johnb@wisr.edu, and if you're in Berkeley, once COVID's over, meet face to face. But we do a lot by Zoom, so being a great distance is not a problem. So one of the things that we did with Linda and Evelin's help was to include a course in human dignity and humiliation studies in our bachelor's, master's, and doctoral programs. And Rosa was, who's finishing her doctoral studies at WISER, is also a member of our faculty. Rosa was, you might say, our first guinea pig, you know, to go through that process. And Rosa did the course, and we've had a couple of other people do the course. And I wanted to talk about some things that I'm beginning to not so much learn as get a lot of curiosity about, to want to learn more. I think the challenges of helping all of us learn more about human dignity and humiliation studies and social justice and multiculturalism and related topics is that it is very complex and subtle, and not everybody learns it the same way. And that's one of the things that Weiser knows in general over the years, that people learn things very differently from one another. So in the case of this course, Rosa and another student just really got into it, and the way it was structured and designed, they learned a lot. Then we had a third student who enrolled in the course, an African-American woman who's very involved in a lot of community-based and social justice activities. She found it traumatizing, and she was having nightmares. And she finally apologetically says, "John, I need to stop taking the course." Well, I'm not presuming to understand all the details of why that was the case, but I'm posing, and I've written a paper which is uploaded somewhere that you can access through Human Dignity and Humiliation Studies network, to raise questions. How can a great course like that be so wonderful for a couple of people and so traumatizing for a third? And it reminds me of the importance of inquiry in general, which leads into one of our emphases at Weiser, is to try to engage people in action inquiry, using a lot of qualitative and participatory research methods. And I'll crassly put in a plug for 2 books soon to be published by Routledge Press that I and others at Weiser have written, things that we've written over the years on transformative action research. And one of the things that we've learned, and many of you I'm sure have learned the same thing or similar things, is that a lot of what goes on is very situational. You can't make cut and dry conclusions about a lot of things without qualifying it. But in this situation, this works, but in this other situation, something very different works. And then that brings us to what I think is one of the larger agendas of this network, as I understand it, because I have been involved with you in a somewhat more peripheral way for a few years before being more significantly involved recently, is that not everybody comes to appreciate what human dignity and humiliation studies is about the same way or so easily. And I'm suggesting in particular that one area of action inquiry is to look for some really wonderful exceptions to the rule. And I'm going to give 2 examples of exceptions to the rule that I'm aware of, partly through reading online what's going on in the world and partly through a couple of films. Under what circumstance do people who are really, really, whom we would at least consider to be very, 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 very hateful, stop becoming hateful and begin to appreciate other people and respect them? And there's 2 movies I want to recommend. One is called Best of Enemies, and it's about some things that happened in North Carolina, in a particular community there in the 70s, when they were trying to desegregate schools. And there was an African-American woman who was a community leader promoting that. And there was a white man who was a leader in the KKK who was obviously not promoting that. Well, I won't tell you the details of the movie, but let's just say the man who was a member of the KKK had a dramatic learning experience that was so profound that he ended up completely changing his views and became a lifelong friend of the woman he was opposing. There's another film that you may have read about too, because the Southern Poverty Law Center did quite a bit to help this man, who was also a member of a white supremacist group. And there's a movie made about it called Skin. And there's a documentary called Erasing Hate. This particular man had a lot of hateful tattoos all over his body. And he again also went through a major conversion. And the Southern Poverty Law Center raised funds to enable him to have the tattoos removed from his body after he went through the significant change of perspective. So I'm just giving those as 2 examples to say that those things, as we all know, don't happen nearly as often as we would hope they would. And it's worth learning more about them. So that's really about all for now I wanted to say for today, is that there's a lot for us to learn about, a lot for us to scratch our head about. Looking for exemplary examples of things that we think are really unusual but wonderful is one good place to start some research. Not the only place, but one place. So having said that, I cede my extra 20 seconds to Rosa Reinikainen.
There we go. Thank you so much, John. Really, I think with what you've said is so important in that understanding. We have to, over a period of time, it's 17 years now, to develop this sensitivity about humiliation and how it impacts people. And when you bring people into a learning experience, to be aware of that. So when you need to, you can step in and engage people in a constructive conversation about those challenges. Because we don't know, people have chapters and chapters of humiliating experiences in their lives that can rise to the surface when we even begin to talk about this topic. So thank you. Give John a round of applause. Thank you so much. And now I'm really excited because I'm going to turn our discussion over, our dialogue over to Rosa. Rosa is one of the learners that went through the WISER program, and she was just on fire, and she's doing great work in the world by continuing her learning by hosting Dignilogues. And by the way, please make a pitch for your Dignilogue because everyone's invited to join you. So Rosa, thank you for being with us.
Great, thank you, Linda. It's wonderful to be here. And I am both, human dignity, humiliation studies Philic and also WISER Philic. So I love both of these places, and to be able to learn about human dignity, humiliation studies at WISER, it's been profound, actually. And I really did take to the course. I thought it was just wonderfully put together. I was stimulated. For me, it felt like it's in line with kind of how I learn anyway. And, just growing up Jewish, I had very much knowledge of the Holocaust. It was sort of, pounded into me. So I definitely had that, and several other, experiences of humiliation. And so for me, it felt refreshing to hear about it so overtly. It felt nurturing and nourishing to hear it in this way. And I also hear how there's a student who it didn't, and there I think probably many who would turn away from this kind of information. So how do we appeal to those people, I guess, is one thing. I have also created, as you said, Linda, I've created these seminars based off of the information in the course. And so these are opportunities for us to really talk about, the course, yes, and to remind ourselves of this subject. And everybody's welcome. They've been, I think, quite lovely to both produce and to hear what other people have to say. I'd like to invite all of you to come to, you're all welcome to come to these seminars. I think the more the merrier. So, well, and I'm not sure, these other learners who have gone through the course, one learner who was going right alongside me, we were kind of back to back right there. It was really great to go through it with another person in a way, and to kind of have, because we have this online forum where we get to have dialogues, it's very collaborative. And so being able to go through the course with another person was also maybe part of the success for both of us, was to be able to kind of, dialogue, well, at least even just on the forum, to be able to kind of hear what other people are, or what another person is feeling about the material, because it is really deep, and intense maybe to take in. And so it was wonderful. So to be able to have that opportunity to do that. So I think if we learn more collaboratively, if we're kind of dialoguing about it, if we're all, instead of kind of in our own little isolation on our own little island learning about it, which could be more traumatizing, I think, for some. If we're actually dialoguing about it, if we're doing it kind of together, I wonder if that would alleviate some of the the tendency to, when we're talking about humiliation, for it to bring up humiliation. So I guess that's my thing. I don't have much else to say unless someone has some questions, but that's about it. I have to say about, you know, my experience of learning human dignity and humiliation studies, you know, at Weiser. And
thank you, Rosa.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, because I think you brought up a crucial point with studying humiliation, is that we do it together. We have this hold hands policy when we're doing all of our work. And I think it even applies to creating learning experiences in our institutions, is bringing people together to work on these ideas together, to offer support, because we think connection can be one of the best protections against the impact of humiliation. So thank you for sharing that. And congratulations on getting through the course. And congratulations, I believe you're working on your doctoral degree. That's coming up really soon. So exciting for us. And
yes, my dissertation will be on love.
on love.
On love.
Wonderful. We can always have more of that. And Rosa, it's so great to have a opportunity to bring other people into the conversation through your seminars. So Rosa, can you tell people how to get to your seminars?
So I believe if you get onto our, John, correct me if
I'm gonna put a link in the chat to our seminar announcements, and you could any given time get the link. I mean, you go to that link and it's updated every month for the next 2 months. So I'm going to type that in now.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And Linda, you're going to get the email about the reminder that we're coming. So you can always forward that to them.
Exactly. We can include it in some of our email messages that we do send out to our entire community, because it's open to anyone who is in our community. And thank you for leading that, Rosa. I'm so proud of you and the work that you've done.
One other thing I'll say real quickly, we also have a YouTube channel, and I think at least one of the previous seminars on human dignity studies is there too, and I'll put that link in a minute as well.
Great, great. Thank you, John. And please give a round of applause to Rosa for joining us and sharing her experience of being a learner within this system and then taking those ideas out into the world. And now we are going to move to our final Dignilogue contributor for this session. I'm so happy to have you with us, Maggie. And what excites me about your work is it inspires creativity, research, and learning all at the same time, creating courageous relationships. So Maggie, tell us what you'd like to share today.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, David, for inviting me to be part of this fabulous panel. I'm very excited about Weiser, and will definitely be connecting with your seminars, Rosa. So thank you for that. So the call to reflect on reimagining learning in a time of crisis for this fabulous workshop got me thinking about the very idea of the university, but also for thinking about what Terry Eagleton calls the slow death of the university in current times, as well as human values and principles at the centre of what the university is and what goes on in universities. And I think Weiser's a really lovely example of that, as well as the Dignilogue University. But this point is also made by the President of Ireland, who is a sociologist. And I'm just going to read you a quote from President Higgins. He says, "Academics all over the world should weep for the destruction of the concept of the university that has occurred in so many places, which has led to little less than the degradation of learning. So he feels that public intellectuals have an ethical obligation to take a stand against increasingly aggressive orthodoxies, as well as discourses of the marketplace that have permeated all aspects of life, but particularly academia. He also suggests that the role of academics, and particularly those involved in the public sphere, should seize moments and have the courage to provide reaction, to be subversive of received assumptions and fallacies. So for me, the commitment to the university as a public good, as a space for critical thinking, of knowledge making and creativity, in fact, the idea of the university as a common good underpins my personal and political commitment to the university and my role in it, that now spans 32 years. So one of the kind of ideas that I've followed over recent years is the idea of thinking about slow, tempo, pace as a metaphor for the creation of a radical space that has the potential for disrupting the accelerated marketized university. And also, you know, that we prioritize the university as a center for what the Dignilogue University does, which is, you know, a center for dialogical learning, critical inquiry, appreciative inquiry, and human flourishing. The wonderful Philip Vostell, who's written about accelerated university, accelerated academia, calls for unhasty time as an explicit political demand and ethical principle. But he also asks us, you know, the scholars, people who teach and work in universities, to reflect on our own practices, which are often symptomatic and reproduce the very phenomena that we criticize. And so we might, you know, drawing on Lifton's concept of malignant normality, we might think about that. And you know, certain aspects of the UK academia in terms of audit, measurement, and measurement is value, is an expression of that. The two concepts I want to introduce, though, is the concept of unmanaging by, and this is taken from a wonderful book by Ted Taptiklis, and he talks about unmanaging the spread of managerial thinking in the public as well as private sector. And he does that via, he talks about that in relation to exploring our lived experience from the bottom up. And so for me, that would be using participatory, biographical, creative methods in and with organizations. And also the second concept I wanted to introduce was brought to me by the Creative Bravery Festival in Scotland, where I was asked to go and talk about the walking classroom. And I love this idea about being, you know, this notion of being creatively brave. And so I think this is another example. And so there's no time to sort of go into the projects here, but in the information on the website, I've put 2 links to 2 films to share 2 pieces of work. One was a lovely participatory project bringing together theatre making and walking with migrant women, undocumented women in London, with the wonderful Terrell and Tracy Reynolds and Irini Kaptani. And the film describes the process, the kind of knowledge production process in working in participatory ways through theatre and walking. And the second is a film based on a workshop we had in Dingle in Kerry in Ireland, which is really beautiful, the Dingle Peninsula, the most westerly point in the south of Ireland. And it was a walking classroom to introduce postgraduates to really unthink orthodox methods of doing research. And so we used walking, we had parallel walks instead of panels. And that was very, very lovely and very convivial. And my last point really is these examples, you know, are underpinned by this concept of Illich's, the concept of conviviality. And, you know, as you know, Illich defines a convivial society as one where people are not slaves to tools, technology, or oppressive governance systems, and where creativity and imagination are the lifeblood of society. So it's a kind of connection for me there to the strategy that you have put together for the Digni University. And I really like this, you know, Mara's concept of reimagining learning, but also Michael's wonderful talk earlier. And, you know, as fellow travelers, rather than sort of hierarchies of learning, but as fellow travelers. And so I think I'm on the button in terms of time. So thank you.
You are on the button. I could listen to you for a long time, Maggie. It's so great to have you with us. And there's so many things about your talk that just really resonates with me. This whole creative bravery, unmanaging. That's really how this workshop grows, is trying to bring people together and share their best ideas and then string it together in a way that inspires others. David, thank you for making us dating with Wiser program. That's so fantastic. John, thank you for bringing up the challenges of working with this concept of humiliation. And it can be difficult. And Rosa, thank you for being a role model of taking these ideas out into the world and inviting more dialogues to grow out of that. And Maggie, I wish I could join you on one of your walking classrooms in Ireland. I'd be there in a flash if I could. So please get a camera for your head and we'll just do a camera type of situation. But as everyone hears, this is a really powerful Dignilogue, where we can think about reimagining learning in a world in the midst of many crises, because we have many crises going forward. So we're going to move into our connection and reflection groups again to share ideas. What's one idea that stood out to you? How would you reimagine education? Because learning and education is an everyday experience. I think of all of us as leaders of dignity in learning. And I'm going to move you into your rooms. I want to reassure people that I checked all my buttons to say, hey, your cameras should all work. So let me know if you have problems. You can always ask for help. And we will meet for about 10 minutes and we'll be seeing you back in the room in about 10 minutes. So first, before you go, give an applause to our wonderful Dignilogue panel that got us started in such a powerful way today. Thank you so much, panel. We're a Dignilogue group. Thank you, Evelyn, with correct language. But hey,
dog start up with me.
Enjoy your breakout room.